have to hold people accountable, and you have controls and compliance and so many other things involved in just the full payroll function. Payroll is not just accounting. It's HR. It's HRIS. It's what do you bring to the table? What have you learned? What are your life lessons you bring along the way? So payroll is a big word. It's not just how somebody gets paid. It's what is their employee experience at their company and how are they supported. In today's world, I don't know that you can teach just payroll anymore. You have to teach the want to do a great job. You have to teach or develop the drive for the successes of doing a great job, not just square peg, square hole. That's what I always say to my team. It's not just a square peg, square hole. We are not looking for paper pushers. We are looking for people who can build puzzles.
Here's a pre-show scenario for you. Imagine you had to visit 6 houses just to cook your dinner. One place has the pots and pans, one has the stove, another has the food. You get the idea. Sounds ridiculous, right? Well, the reality is most global businesses operate the same way, using 6 different tools just to pay their global workforce. But now there's one platform offering truly simple, truly global payroll. And that's today's sponsor. That's Deel. That's Deel. With in-house customer success managers, local payroll experts, dedicated points of contact, and more, Deel eliminates third-party handovers and provides unmatched compliance and flexibility. In fact, they'll even help you track and flag the latest changes in payroll regulations before they even become an issue. So are you ready to transform your global payroll system? If you are, click the link in the show notes below to book a demo with Deel today. That's Deel. Hello and welcome back to the Payroll Podcast. I'm your host. My name is Nick Day. I'm CEO at JGA Recruitment Group. We are specialist payroll recruiters with offices in the UK, Europe, and now the USA as well. Now, today we are joined by a truly inspiring payroll leader, someone who's really helped reshape the way that we think about payroll. You may have heard my guest speak on other payroll shows as well. She is an absolute whiz when it comes to payroll, but not just payroll. It's someone who's involved in HRIS and HR and other areas of payroll as well. I know that's something that many of my listeners want to find out more about. How do we get there? How do we get to the top of the payroll tree? Well, today my guest is Cari Breitinger, CPP, Director of HRIS and Payroll at Belfour Property Restoration. And today I'm hoping we're going to find out exactly how Cari has transformed payroll from transactional function to a trusted operational strategic partner. Why is that important? Because that is the future, folks. That's where payroll is going. It's becoming more strategic. We're coming away from the transactional side of things. And Cari's going to show us how she's done it and why it's so important. We really do dive deep into not just data, but also visibility. And even more importantly, from my perspective, empathy. Yes, folks, it's about the employee experience. So without further ado, welcome, Cari, to the Payroll Podcast. How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling great. Thanks for having me. And that was so inspiring. I'm going to go hang up now and go do my job.
Well, I'm inspired to have you here. You and I have known each other for a while now. We've met up at every payroll congress when I get to the other side of the pond. It's always great to connect with you. So I'm excited for this conversation. But I'm going to start with my first question, something I ask all of my guests, which is this. You probably know what's coming. What does the word payroll mean to you?
Wow. That's a pretty big question. Payroll, to me, is how do we take care of our employees? So we talked about in your intro very quickly, where's the empathy in what we do? Payroll has to have that as part of their role. But to get there, you have to hold people accountable, and you have controls and compliance and so many other things involved in just the full payroll function. Payroll is not just accounting. It's HR. It's HRIS. It's what do you bring to the table? What have you learned? What are your life lessons you bring along the way? So payroll is a big word. It's not just how somebody gets paid. Absolutely. It's what is their employee experience at their company and how are they supported?
Love that. You know what? It reminds me, and I've mentioned this on the show before, and he has his own podcast now, Max van der Clisper-Sink. I know you were on his show for Payzar, where he says, when I interviewed him back in 2018, I think, at Payroll Congress, and he said, Nick, payroll is the best of HR, it's the best of finance, it's the best of tech, it's the best of accounting. Bring all the best bits, put it into one profession. What have you got? You've got payroll. And I think you've kind of touched upon some of that now, but I think there's an extra element to it now, and that's the employee experience part. You know, that wasn't something we were talking about years ago, and I know it's something we're going to talk about a little bit more today. Before we get there, though, Tell the listeners a little bit about your journey. How did you find your way into payroll, and what led you through that wonderful process that's got you to the world of directorship as you are now?
Yeah. Well, my journey started at a much younger age. I'm going to say probably about 7 or 8 years old, surprisingly. My parents owned a country club here in the States, and my job at 7 and 8 years old was to help my mother drop the French fry basket in the French fry. That was my job. Today,
Nice.
you wouldn't be able to do that at 8 years old. There are OSHA requirements that get you in trouble. But back then, it was okay. So fast forward, of course, we finish our education. I've got my associate's degree in computer programming, and I went to get my first real job, and it was a tape librarian at a PPG Paints. That lasted for a month. So for you youngsters, you can't envision what a tape library looks like. It looks like a library with 100 floor to ceiling tape drives, and you just had to run around like a chicken with your head cut off and loading these things in. It lasted a month. Didn't like it. So my next job, first job into the payroll world, was a bookkeeper at a restaurant. And they said, "Do you have experience in food services?" I said, "Sure. My family owned a country club. I helped work in the kitchen." They said, "Do you have experience in accounting?" I said, "Sure. I learned it in school. I can do that." And so you have to be confident in yourself. I got the job. It turned out I was a great bookkeeper doing the payroll for that restaurant and then what were 4 others in the family-owned business. And then I made my next progression in my career to a true payroll and HR operation at a market research company. And at that point is where we put all of the pieces together: the time collection, the tax reporting, the tax filing, the HR parts of it, all of the EEO reporting, employee relations, benefits, all of that came into play. So between that first start as the bookkeeper, we'll count it, to the market research company, there was a period of about 3 years, 2.5, 3 years for that growth. And then once I hit that true payroll job, having a wonderful leader, I spoke about her in my industry speaker speech for Payroll Congress. Her name was Marianne. Her initials were Mav, so we just call her Mav. Had a wonderful leader who taught me so much and opened my eyes up to the puzzle. I call it the puzzle of payroll. So every payroll is made up of bits and pieces of a lot of stuff. How does everything fit together? So that's a little bit of my journey. And then it continues through a myriad of organizations and companies.
And one of those companies, maybe not everyone knows this, but of course you've worked in my industry as well. You've worked in payroll management for a staffing companies. You know exactly what some of the challenges that I'm faced with as a business owner here, and you understand the world of recruitment very, very well. Let's jump on that. I think it'd be foolish of me not to ask you. How have you seen the world of payroll recruitment change? Now, I know your staffing world wasn't necessarily in the world of recruitment; it was staffing generally, but you've obviously recruited as a leader. You've worked in the recruitment sector, so you've seen it both from an in-house perspective and an agency perspective. Have you seen I guess the industry shift from a recruitment standpoint when it comes to payroll professionals?
It's from the payroll profession. It's tough, quite honestly. When I used to recruit for a payroll position back in the day, I used to say, just give me somebody who doesn't know. Think about how I learned, right? I had this much knowledge about what payroll did, but I had a great leader who taught me a lot about a lot of things. And I could teach payroll. In today's world, I don't know that you can teach just payroll anymore. You have to teach the want to do a great job. You have to teach or develop people the drive for the successes of doing a great job, not just square peg, square hole. That's what I always say to my team. It's not just a square peg, square hole. We are not looking for paper pushers. We are looking for people who can build puzzles, who can reach out across what is now, the computer or the phone and talk to people when they have a question and a problem. We're not hiding behind those things anymore. And so recruiting for a payroll position is not as easy as it used to be.
No, well, I would certainly attest to that. I think you raised an important observation, actually, which is, payroll used to be very much around just technical skills. I remember when I first started in recruitment, I would give someone a payroll technical skills assessment, and their score would often dictate how easy it was for me to place that professional. Hey, this person's got 100%. We're going to place you tomorrow. No problem at all.
Yeah.
But actually now it's more nuanced. It's not just about the skills. And yes, we need that technical expertise for sure. But you raise an important point, which is more related to the aptitudes of an individual, the want to do it, the want to give the employees a great experience, the want to investigate an error until we find out where that error has come from, to problem solve, and to actually really want to do a brilliant job rather than just do a job. But I think that's been part of the shift of moving away from falling into payroll, as perhaps we used to do, to now really choosing it as a profession because we want to make a difference. Now, I raised that observation because I think, from my perspective, and I speak to payroll managers and payroll directors every single day of my working life, you've really worked hard to shift payroll's perception from transactional to strategic. So tell me a little bit more about why that's been a passion of yours and why you think it's so important in today's modern world of payroll.
Yeah, the message that I've been sending this last year has really been that payroll is not a transactional business. It is an operational business. And if we get into the meat of how we in the payroll department can support corporate initiatives, we can drive change. And you have the old fallacy of payroll is just a back office function. It's just a cost center. Nobody takes it seriously. That's changed in the world. And I think that's the message that payroll professionals need to deliver. I remember years and years ago when I went through some changes here at Belfour in their payroll department, building on technology, cleaning up some issues that they have after I first started. I think it was 5 years into my career here at Belfour. I met with some folks that were really experienced in work opportunity credits, tax credits. And I said, I've not had a chance to play in this space yet, but this company would lend itself to be a good, that would be a good solution for this company. And year one, you got $90,000 in credits. Year 2, 3, 4, we were in the $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 in work opportunity tax credits that we were getting here. Unheard of. Absolutely unheard of. I was paying for the whole payroll operation just with the tax credits, right?
Wow.
And so when you think about flipping that conversation about what can I do as a payroll professional or as a payroll manager to increase the profitability, the bottom line. What can I do? Whether I'm reducing head, whether I'm changing technology, whether I'm adding solutions like tax credits, where are there opportunities? How can I drive? If my company's always growing. If they walked in here today and said, I want an open office in Utah, where would a good place be? I know that I may not have it at my fingertips, but I know where to go to say, well, if you're in this city, you get this tax credit. If you're here, you get some kickback here. We can do it with, technology enhancements. So bottom line, we can support what the company needs. Even the simplest headcount conversation, right? I have $100,000 a quarter in overtime, total random numbers, because I don't have enough people to staff. But if I hire 40 people, that overtime number is going to go down delta $20 or $30 or $40,000 because now I'm paying people straight time as opposed to overtime. Those are all conversations as payroll managers we have all the time.
Sure.
But you got to think about how do you communicate that effectively then to your leadership to make sure to get them to understand who you are, that you're not just square peg, square hole transactional person. Everybody gets paid. Yay.
I mean, I absolutely love this concept. It's something that I've written about it, right? The idea of moving from being seen as, I think you put it, as this cost center and into a place of profitability as a profit center. And that seems alien to so many people. How can the department that arguably spends more money out than any other function be seen as a profit center? And I'll always, you gave some fantastic examples there when you talk about absence and using the tax credits. But even from a recruitment standpoint, through the lens that I look at the industry through, If you give a better payroll experience to your employees, that helps to retain your employees, which is arguably the biggest challenge for HR professionals right now, is the attraction, engagement, and retention of its staff. If you can keep just one of those people into your business because they've given a great payroll experience, you paid them compliantly, on time, maybe you've had some innovative solutions in the way that you do things, where you pay them on demand or whatever it is, you've listened to them and given them a benefit solution that works. You've modeled a payroll solution for them, and you keep the top performers in that business. We know in every organization, using Pareto's law, that 20% of the population deliver 80% of the results. You don't want to lose that 20%, or it's going to be extremely costly to your company. And payroll has a huge role to play, certainly from the lens that I look at it through, of keeping the top staff engaged, but also helping to attract new staff in. And that's where, we can't always put a nickel and dime exactly to where payroll has added profit, but you get a sense of it. You can see retention improve. You can see the ability to attract staff improve. You can see in the examples you've given, absence go down, right? Now, we may not be direct that we spent £1 and made 2, but you can start to see some analytical correlations, which are incredibly powerful. So I want to stay on this point just for a second. If someone's listening to this right now and they said, okay, that sounds great, Nick, you've given a couple of examples. Cari, what are maybe five simple ways, and I appreciate I'm putting you on the spot here, where payroll professionals can drive value beyond the paycheck within their organization that perhaps they haven't thought about before?
I think right now, first and foremost, is technology. So you really, in today's world, you have to embrace technology, whether it's an internal payroll solution or external payroll solution, a third party doing your payroll. You really need to understand where the power of that technology is and be able to implement process changes to benefit from all of the power that's out there, right? We just hired a great payroll supervisor here. We all have to recognize our shortcomings, right? They say a great leader is the person that surrounds herself or himself with people that do their functions a whole lot better than they do, than the leader does. So where my shortcomings in, I need to staff up with everybody else who's got this. Yeah. And so we hired a great payroll supervisor, and just in a very short amount of time, layering on things, very simple pivots and macros and things that we're doing in Excel has allowed him to elevate the payroll solution. So we're getting things done faster. Payroll's getting cleaner. Less questions are out there. So you want to do that. Make sure that you're getting in the right classes. The second thing that I would say is just, the overall payroll education. Payroll is not just, getting hours in and getting a check out. You need to understand, what do you need to do with those hours? How does the laws apply to that payment, that type of payment? What are they taxed at? Am I depositing my taxes the right way? So educate yourself on everything payroll. I don't know if I'm going to get to 5 here. I might end up stopping at 3. I'd like to say, as I said before, payroll's a puzzle. So you need to understand, where do you fit in the organization, right? So in my payroll department here at Belfour, we don't just do payroll. We do gross to net check payroll. We file the taxes. We manage imputed income. I help manage the fleet and set compensation programs. We hire, we terminate, we from start to finish, the full HRIS solution. We do the GL, we do job costing, we do prevailing wages. There's so many things in my payroll department that when I say that to people, they're like, wow, how did that end up in your world? That's the puzzle.
Yeah. Well, you highlighted an interesting part there, if we use the puzzle analogy, because you said, sometimes we've got to recognize that the role is that we need to have other people in the organization to realize what our role is and what we can deliver and what we can do. But sometimes I think that's the missing piece of the puzzle. And I think here the onus actually is often on the payroll professionals. Maybe even listening to this show, I'm going to challenge you and say sometimes it's down to you listeners not doing enough to speak upwards and tell your organizations what it is that you do. Sometimes there's an expectation that we think they should already know. And perhaps you're right. Perhaps they should know just how complex and challenging payroll is to do and how critically important it is to get right. But the reality is they don't always know. And if they don't know, it's up to us to educate our counterparts in HR and finance in our C-suite to say, hey, you know what? You may already know what I do, but just in case you're not fully familiar, this is some of my responsibilities. I get involved in fleet if it was talking about yourself. These are some things we've done on tax credits. I can support you with HR technology. What's your biggest challenge in accounting right now? I might be able to support you with that. We've got access to data. I don't think those conversations happen as readily as I would like them to, because I think if they did happen, we could really start to collectively raise the profile of payroll, because we'll do so through really a process of improving understanding to the wider organizational community, if you like. I don't know if that would ring true for you, but that's how I see it. I think you raised some really interesting points.
I think absolutely,
also,
absolutely agree with you. Absolutely agree with you. Actually, I am working on a presentation for Congress next year. I hope it gets accepted. It has not been accepted yet, but it is, and we're just calling it payroll therapy. And it is, when you are faced with that, what do you do? You know, what happens when somebody says payroll's the easy button? All you do is cut checks. What do you as a person do with that information? And you really have to look inwardly and say, that's not all I do. What I'm not doing is educating the world to what I do. And you have to find the way. How do you educate that world? Years ago, I had to do a presentation here with all of the managers on payroll department vision. Where are we at today? Where do we want to be? Our accounting team had to do the same presentation. Where are they at today? Where do they want to be? So it was all of the managers had to sit down. And it was really, they struggled with that. A lot of the managers struggled with that. And I was really proud to say that when I was done with my presentation, the CFO said, see what Cari did? This is what I want from everybody else. There was metrics involved. There was, where's the growth plan? Where's the ROI? Is it cover 2 years, 3 years, 5 years? I can now see the vision. But most importantly, what they got out of that was, I didn't realize Cari did all that.
Right.
And I said, well, who do you think did?
Yeah.
And their answer typically is, I don't know. It just got done. And so we have to make sure that we're educating the leadership. This is really what I do.
Yeah, absolutely right. And it links to something I want to talk about, which is empathy in payroll. Before I get to that, you mentioned something in your first point about when you recruited a payroll supervisor that did the things that better than you in the areas that you need support, which I think is a wonderful example of having people around you. And actually, I've never had an opportunity to do this in the 300 episodes of podcasts I've done, but it rang true for me, and it made me feel really warm and fuzzy inside when you mentioned it. And this is true. So years ago, when I launched JJ Recruitment back in 2008, and I was managing everything by myself, I was kind of my own island, and I was trying to recruit staff and everything else. And my ops director now, Roz Winchester, who I'm sure will listen to this at some point, I haven't mentioned her on the show before, but she came to me as an executive assistant and said, Nikki, I'm looking for a new position. Are there any openings in your firm? And I said, there isn't at the moment. Well, it's not just me. I haven't got the budget. But I left that meeting going, I need Roz in my life. Like, this is what I need. She does the things that I'm not very good at myself, and actually take me hours and hours to do in terms of organizational, time management, diary management, all the things that were taking up hours, which meant I couldn't do what I was really good at, which is recruitment. Mm-hmm. So I found a way I said, Roz, I need you in my life. I'm going to have to find a way of hiring you. I'm going to be upfront. I don't have the budget. We're going to find a way to make this work. And it was full transparency. She joined my firm. And that was actually the moment where our business took off, because in alleviating the things I wasn't good at and giving that to someone who was exceptional at them and still is, freed up me to do the things I was good at and allowed our business to really start to take flight. And Roz is now an operational director in our firm now. So she's gone through the ranks as well. She manages our sustainability programs and our charitable programs. But at the time, it's enabled us to grow because she took the things off me that I was struggling with, that I wasn't very good at. And when you're not good at something, typically it takes you forever to get it done as well, right? Because you either don't enjoy doing it or you're just not very good at it or whatever. So I had to mention that. It's not necessarily a payroll story, but I think there's something in that if you've got areas in your payroll function which are causing you blockages, causing you loads of time, causing you frustration, find someone else who can alleviate that from you. Maybe they exist in your team, maybe they exist within your organization, or maybe you do need to recruit. But you'll be amazed at how much that can alleviate some of those stresses and some of those constraints. Hello, global payroll leaders. Are you facing challenges in finding the right payroll talent for your team? If you are, I hear you. And I'm here to offer you a solution, because at JGA Payroll Recruitment, we're experts at sourcing, attracting, and engaging with top-tier global payroll talent that really drives business success. So don't let the frustration of finding great payroll professionals hold you back from raising the profile of payroll in your organization. The cost of a poor hire isn't just financial. It costs you time, or worse, it damages the reputation of your payroll operation. That's why we're 100% dedicated to ensuring your recruitment journey with us is nothing short of exceptional. Partner with us at JGA because we're an award-winning global payroll recruitment agency with a proven track record of success. We have over 100 five-star Google reviews, and we're trusted by many of the world's leading brands. And we would just love to help you elevate your team with the best payroll talent available anywhere in the world. Reach out to us today at 01727 800 or 377, or visit us at jjrecruitment.com. And while you're at it, why not sign up to our weekly payroll newsletter for exclusive industry insights and job opportunities? With us, your perfect payroll opportunity or your perfect payroll hire awaits.
Absolutely. My first job, that first job at the market research company, again, I had an associate's degree in computer programming behind me. I was in 1979, 1980. And I interviewed with the market research company. And their premise, to your point, is that they had no IT department. Everybody at the company had to be an IT professional. And they stuck me in payroll, and they said, so if the payroll fails, if the program doesn't work, you have to fix it because you know payroll. And I said, okay, it's logic, again, it's the puzzle of whatever. And I love doing it. That was in the days of DOS green screens.
Yeah. I remember it.
Before PCs.
Payroll are fixes, right? Payroll are fixes. That leads me to where I wanted to go, because you talked about, it's really important that we educate our organizations about what it is we do and what it is we're good at. I would take it another level further, and I know that you do as well, so I'm going to take us to the point, which links us to the point of empathy. But also, it's important we don't just go straight into accounts or HR and say, hey, this is what I do. It's also saying, what can I do to help you? What is your biggest challenge in HR? Because chances are there's some data or some tool or something in the payroll function that can probably do something to help support that challenge. We mentioned one where the biggest HR challenge is retention and attraction of staff. We've already talked about the very brief link between good payroll means better retention, better attraction. There's going to be similar examples in the world of accounting. I don't think we ask those questions enough as well. It's not just saying what we do. It's also saying, now you know what I do. What's your challenge? And what can I do within my function to help you? So as a collective, we really take this company forward. I mention that because I know you're really passionate about the power of empathy in payroll, bringing payroll beyond purely just the functional and moving it into the importance of why empathy is so important in current payroll operations, as you put it. So I'd like you to explain it better than I just have, because that wasn't the best introduction to the question. But I know that you're very focused on bringing empathy into the payroll operation. So I wonder if you could just bring that up to speed for us.
Yeah, I think in my entire career, we all realize very quickly the first time you get a wrong payroll check, right? At 16 years old, working at a McDonald's, my payroll check's wrong. I'm devastated. Back then, it was because I couldn't go to the mall. Today, it would be because I couldn't pay a bill, right? And that creates conflict in your family life. Obviously, creates conflict with your creditors, and it detracts from you doing your job every single day. And so, when we think about that, when I try to explain to my team is that you're just not putting a piece of paper with a dollar amount written on it in somebody's hand. This is their livelihood. This is what they build their home life on. And it can't be taken for granted. So we need to make sure that in payroll, we recognize that what we do, again, is not just giving somebody a payroll check, it's giving them their livelihood. What do we need to do to make their life a little easier? In the position that I hold now, and I've been here for 23 years, the consistent message that I give is a perfect example of where we are today. We're in the cat zone, in the Florida, Carolinas cat zone, helping companies recover from Hurricane Helene and Milton. Obviously, horrible devastation in those two areas. And we have moved people from around the globe to come to here to help. We have people here in Canada. We've got people here from Israel. We've got people, the one job site we had 1,000 people working at, trying to bring it back online. Those 1,000 people have been here for a month, away from their family, away from their friends. We're getting close to the holidays time, all of those things. And so there's in addition to trying to help people through the worst devastation that they're experiencing, seeing things that none of us want to see when you think about in the Carolina zones, that plays on somebody's psyche. And so what you don't want to do is to screw up a payroll check. You want to be there to support them. You don't want their families to go without because you wanted to leave at 5:00 and you didn't finish whatever task you were going to finish, right? So if they're out there working 12 to 16 hours a day in the mud, in the sewage, in the biohazards that they're working in, you better believe my team is doing everything that we can to support them. We took 2 of my team members and shipped them to Florida and said, go do what you do down there to collect time, to do the audits, to do the whatnot. They came back with the most wonderful experience that they've ever had, understanding more again how payroll fits into the operation. So the empathy is really treat others the way you would want to be treated.
Yeah.
If somebody is, if there's a loved one that is in one of those zones, typically in the US, you say you don't talk to anybody about payroll other than that employee. We don't abide by that because they're over here busy doing whatever they need to do. We will talk to the spouse if there's something wrong. We will help them along the way. We talk through the EAP. We talk about all of those other things that trying to keep the employees' minds in the right mindset so they can continue to support Balfour and our customers and our clients. And having the right level of empathy, again, it's important. It's not just creating a payroll check. You're not hiding behind that phone or that computer.
No, I love that. I love that for many reasons. One is because it shows how far payroll has evolved. I think years ago, we probably would have hidden behind the phone or the keyboard and in our windowless office often and let HR deal with some of these things. And actually now there's a lot more collaboration between those functions and there's a joint responsibility to look after employee welfare. Mm-hmm. And I think it was one connection that's really come out of recent news, particularly post-pandemic, was that there's a really, really close link between financial stress and financial health and mental stress. And of course, if we can help alleviate that pressure that financial stress can put upon us, particularly if you're unsure about your pay or whatever, then you're going to really alleviate the risks that of people developing any kind of mental health issues. So I think there's so much here that can be unpicked, and we should really be exploring as a community of payroll professionals, as an industry, because we can have a huge impact on the welfare and the experience of our employees that really skyrockets the profession into public consciousness, really, because it has such an impact. And of course, we saw that during the pandemic. I can't believe I'm still talking about the pandemic. But when payroll continued to keep the world paid, that was arguably what kept everyone else moving forward in one of the roughest times the world has ever experienced in terms of being able to go to work or not. And knowing that we didn't have to worry about that little element, I say little because of course it's not little at all, but the element of whether or not we're going to get paid allowed people to keep moving forward. So I know I've never experienced hurricanes and things like that you have, but it's wonderful to hear of the way that your business and your payroll department responded to the unexpected, to these unforeseen circumstances. It can really throw people into complete, insecurity and all the things that come with it. So, and anguish and things like that. So I think it's absolutely fantastic.
I think that's driven by company culture, right? Don't you?
Sure.
So in my world, our CEO, I'm sure if anybody's read about him, he hand writes birthday cards for 14,000 employees across the globe. Hand writes on his own. When he goes on an airplane to take a trip, he's got to stack this big of birthday cards, and he starts writing birthday cards for everybody. That filters down, right? We talk about when back in Hurricane Katrina. We had people on site there, again, thousands and thousands of people. And, they were walking to work over bridges where, if you were here in the States, it was horrible devastation. And they weren't able to even remove the loved ones that we've lost from sites. So they're walking past lost loved ones to get into a building. They're living in tent cities on the ocean and taking baths in the ocean because there was absolutely no infrastructure to try and get infrastructure back together again. And so when we talk about my team, the message is, if they can do that, we can take a step back here.
Sure.
Because we're going home to our loved ones every day, and we're eating a warm meal every day, and they're not. So what do you need to do to make their lives a little easier? And that's the empathy that we have. Think about your employees.
And I think, I don't know if everyone's aware of this, but if I'm correct I think I'm correct here, but your CEO, of course, was once an undercover boss. So he put himself above, put himself out there really to see, let's walk the walk and see if we can improve our organization. And it was featured, and it's a wonderful story there. I'll let people try and Google that and catch it themselves. But not every boss would put themselves out there like that to really learn about how a business is feeling from the inside. So I thought that was a real, for me, that shows something that you're willing to learn and willing to sometimes face painful truths as well, and really see things from the inside. And that's one story I won't go into today, but it's something that I think speaks a little bit about the culture that you have at Belfour. But I'd also say that if you feel like in your organization you haven't got that culture, sometimes it's on us as an individual, us as an organization. You can have mini cultures as well. So your payroll department can still be an island in the sense that just because that's not how your business does things culturally, but you feel that you want to support your employees, that should never stop you from, living your most authentic self in that payroll position, and try and, instill those kind of those kind of sensibilities, if you like, in your teams as well. Because I imagine, Cari, wherever you went, this would follow you as well. This is the kind of person that you are. You're just very empathetic and innovative and supportive. Right. And I think that goes with you wherever the organization is. It's just very lucky you've got a company that fully supports that.
You and I were talking earlier about the Henry story that I was talking about on.
Yes, Henry the goldfish.
Podcast. Henry the goldfish, yeah. And those are the stories. They're across this country all of the time.
So come on, tell our listeners, if they haven't heard, we can't leave it there. We'll leave them on a cliffhanger. Tell us about the Henry the goldfish and what it.
We can make them go connect to the other podcast.
Tells us about payroll leadership. Yeah.
Yeah. So the Henry story is, when we talk about Belfour and we talk about its culture, again, the empathy just doesn't, start and end in the headquarters department. It is really driven by the field, and it infiltrates the headquarters department. So one of the stories that I love to tell about when I'm explaining to potential new hires, I'm doing recruitings, this is the culture that you're walking into, is many, many years ago, I'm going to say late 2008-9, there was a tornado that hit Henryville, Indiana. I believe is the city. And it took a direct hit to a school. It was during the day. The school was, obviously, we have all of the alerts. So the teachers had gotten the students from the east side of the school, moved them into the gym, the safe zone on the west side of the school, all just in the nick of time. And the east side of the school took a direct hit from the tornado. So total decimation. If you looked at the pictures in the news, you can actually see the gym standing and nothing else. It was amazing.
Wow.
And so Belfour, we are often called to restore and rebuild educational sites, hospitals, and so on and so forth. So we get our teams together and we go out to the school. And as the carpenter happens to be picking up debris, underneath a pile of debris is this goldfish bowl. And in it, swimming around full of water, is this goldfish, oblivious to what just happened. And so when you think about that, it's just like, wow, that thing made it all the way through this. And he was unscathed. So the carpenter was like, so what do I do with this? Everybody's like, I don't know. What do you do with a goldfish? It's not like a dog, a cat. You can take the Humane Society. It's a goldfish. So the carpenter took him home, and he named him Henry for the school. Henryville named him Henry. We finished the job, opened up the school on opening day, what their normal class day would have started in the fall. And they had a big celebration, welcome everybody back. The goldfish had sat in the prior year in a second grade room. All of those children now have been elevated to third grade. So the carpenter walked in and brought Henry back to the school. And the kids were just floored, absolutely floored. When we think about the devastation and the chaos that they lived through, for him to walk in with their original goldfish, Henry, and hand it back to them, it made every one of those kids' stress level just drop a little bit. They were excited to be back at school. He was Henry, not the carpenter. Henry was a celebrity for, I'm sure, that year at least, and hopefully many more. I don't know how many years goldfish last, but yeah, it was a good story. But taking that extra step, I mean, we didn't have to do that. The guy could have just said it's a goldfish and done what you normally do with a goldfish that nobody wanted. Sure. But no, he recognized how important that is. And we do that all the time. We've had frontline workers dig through debris of a burned down home looking for wedding rings because it was important to that grandmother at the time and getting them back. One of our operations in our Fort Worth area does restoration on property. So photo albums, putting all of that back together again. I personally had an event in my personal life about a year ago. There was a fire at my home, and everybody's fine and the house is restored now. But I had a picture, the one picture of my brother, my sister, and I. She was 4, I was 3, he was 1. Only picture we've got, all three of us that survived. It had water damage. Wow. Sending that to our Fort Worth office and getting it back as if nothing had happened to that meant the world to me. And so those are the things that we do. And that's the culture. We don't just put lives or buildings to right, we put lives back to right.
No, it's a wonderful story. I'm glad we had another opportunity to share it again for those who haven't heard it before. It's a wonderful story. And it just goes to show that, sometimes taking that extra step, what is it we can do? And we can bring that into the payroll context. What are the extra steps we can do for our employees? What are the extra steps we can do for our team members? What are the extra steps we can do that can just support someone that's within our vicinity, whether that's at work or at home, wherever it might be? Because it's amazing how profound those little steps, the impact those little steps can have on others. And I think, sometimes I'm a big believer of the saying, just be more kind generally, and the world will be a happier place. And sometimes we need to remind ourselves. And I think that carpenter in that moment was kind and empathetic and compassionate for that goldfish and look at the impact it had on the school. It's a wonderful story. Yeah. One thing I want to ask before we open the vault, and I appreciate this is probably a little bit of a segue here because this probably should have mentioned this earlier on in the show, but saying that, I did say in my introduction, I was going to talk a little bit today about the importance of moving payroll more into the world of data. A data-driven approach to payroll is definitely a growing trend. And I realize this does not link to goldfishes and things like that. However, there'll be people keen still, I'm sure, to understand how you might be using data to enhance payroll visibility and credibility within Belfort. I know it's something you're really passionate about. So last question before we open the vault. I wonder if you can just give us some insight in terms of how you're really utilizing a data-driven approach to your advantage.
Yeah, so think about the part of the conversation that we had a little while ago where I had to give the presentation with all the other managers in the building. Where did you see payroll in 5 years? Or what are we doing? Or how does payroll give me some dynamics? I mean, that's data analytics. And I was doing that before data analytics was data analytics, before people were doing that, right? I'm the number cruncher. I'm the computer expert, right? So we want to make sure as payroll professionals that we are finding ways to communicate that. You have so much data at your fingertips, not different from the finance team with, in the GL. It's what are you going to do? What is important to your leadership? That's the first thing you have to ask. What do they care about? Do they care about headcount? Do they care about total hours worked? Do they care about temp labor hours? Do they care about reasons for terminations and staffing and pay bands based on region and so many things? And you need to partner with your leadership team to, again, take them from the transactional thought of how payroll is to the strategic. And that happens with data. They can make great strategic decisions as long as you provide them the data. And but you have to be careful on how you provide it. Sometimes data is a big word.
Yeah.
You can very easily go over the cliff with them. They get the glossed over look in their eye. No idea what you're talking about anymore. Just because we find it fascinating, they may not get it.
So, Cari, is there an example of where you've used data then to support an organizational objective, where you've seen it deliver ROI, or actually the organization's taken a strategic shift in its approach because of the data that you provided to the C-suite?
Yeah. So, and I don't want to say that it's necessarily just the C-suite. It's every part of the organization. Sure. We talk about. I just had a conversation yesterday with a gal on my team that handles prevailing wage. She's a little behind in a task that needs to get reported out in order for Belfort to get paid. So my conversation with her is, well, how many hours is it going to take you to catch up? And then you think about that. Now I got to apply man hours to that. And then I go to the C-suite or to the executive level leadership and say, you know what? We have this many to do. It's going to take us this long. I don't have enough staff to do it. Now I need I need a temporary person to come in for 3 or 4 weeks to help get through this backlog of tasks that we need to do. We talk about labor dollars, the biggest expense to the company. Again, we've got 100 people making $10 an hour at 100 hours a week is X number. But if we move that 100 people to $110 or 110 people, it's not directly relational. Now your labor dollars get reduced a little bit. Yeah. You're getting more output with your employee headcount. People are happier, as we talk about, not work-life balance. We apply all of those things, and then we take it to in your world. Well, how do I get 10 people? How do I don't want to recruit. I don't want to put 10 more people on my payroll. Well, if I hire 10 people, it's going to cost X. If I use 10 temporary laborers, it's going to cost Y. If I do a temp to hire solution, where's the balance in the, yeah. I'm not going to now, I'm not going to overpay an hourly rate when I can convert them to a regular employee that much quicker, right? And so all of those are conversations that I have all of the time. I don't think of them in the context of what you're necessarily thinking of.
Sure.
Them. No, I'm not sitting down and having a meeting because they are ingrained in every moment of my life.
You're doing this every day in real time, all the time. What I like there is you also highlighted not the tangibles and the intangibles, how I'd call it. So it's, a dollar for dollar is not always a fair exchange. So yes, you might say actually taking a temporary resource is going to cost me $1 more, but then you're also alleviating the stress that you're putting on an individual working extra hours who impacting their work-life balance. Maybe you lose your top performer because you've overworked them or wanted too much, when actually an interim resource may have just solved that solution. So there's lots of ways of looking at these things. And by the way, I'm not just saying you have to go to an interim solution and a recruitment angle, but it's always being mindful of the intangible benefits of sometimes making a data-driven decision as well. It's not always a one-for-one scenario, as you know. It's almost algebraic. It's sometimes a 1 + 1 can equal 3, because actually we're going to get more than just what we're bargaining for. And I think that's where sometimes those conversations can be so valuable when people realize the added value you can have. Like me hiring that executive assistant years ago actually allowed me to create a number, many more sales and placements than I could have ever done without that hire.
Exactly.
So it's looking at things differently.
Exactly. And we think about it in the HR space. Again, I'm the HRIS manager, but I'm not the HR manager or the HR director. Mm-hmm. That person has to be able to go and talk about the pluses and minuses of new benefit programs. If I increase a life insurance policy and decrease a short-term disability policy, where's the net? How is that going to benefit our employees? Talking about, headcount, labor. I mean, those conversations are happening from, but they're all coming from my system. They're all coming from the analytics that I've got in my solution. They're not coming from spreadsheets anywhere else anymore. Those days are
Sure.
long gone.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
So, so as a payroll professional, when we think about payroll professionals, we want to think about, I want to, maybe I'll say this differently. We think about payroll and HR professionals. So take it into your space, Nick, in totality. You have to be able to partner the two departments together, need to be able to, as you said earlier, ask the question, what can we do to help you? I'm HRIS. What can I do to help payroll? What can I do to help HR? What can I do to help the LMS system, talent system, all of those things to make their lives easier? And then build that data, build that database of data that every manager out there should be able to tap into to present whatever they want to present to benefit the company.
Yeah. Yeah. God, this has been I could talk to you for hours. I think about so many subjects we haven't even skimmed the surface on. We'll have to have you back, Cari. But listen, let's open the
We'll catch
payroll
up
vault.
at Congress next year.
Well, we'll do that as well. 100%. And I want to watch your presentation. I hope that gets signed off and read your reports as well. Now, I'm going to open the payroll vault. So these are short, sharp questions. There's just 3 of them. The first one is this. If you could give one piece of advice to the payroll professionals who are working in payroll right now, what would it be?
Build your repertoire. Don't pigeonhole yourself into one opportunity, into one segment of the payroll function. Payroll expands, as I said, into the HR space, into the finance space. It's always in the gray area. It's not black and white. We are required, of course, to have audit controls and compliance and regulatory things that we need to adhere to. But there's so much more to payroll than just a gross to net check.
Beautiful.
Build your education. I have a lot of people coming across my desk today that want to be in payroll, but when I say FLSA, EEO, tax, they glaze over, right? Because they're not getting that really good education. So reach out, find your education, partner with PAYO. I'll throw a plug in there, partner with PAYO, and sit for your CBP or your FPC or whatnot and really understand. That's a great opportunity for you to understand exactly what payroll does in totality. And it's not just a gross to net check.
Absolutely right. Mic drop for there for sure. If I could give you a magic wand, Cari, and you could change or improve one thing about the payroll industry, what would it be and why?
I think it would be, I don't want to say I want a seat at the table because, as Max says, there's too many people at the table already.
Yeah.
I think I've had the luxury of being the SME here, and they recognize that for me here. But a lot of my payroll contemporaries don't have that same opportunity. And if I could change the payroll world, it would be to find a voice for some of those people that are struggling to find their voice, and to have leadership want to listen to those voices. We understand payroll is the biggest expense at a company. Labor is the biggest expense of the company, but it doesn't get the same acknowledgement that sales do and marketing does, and the profit centers, if you will, people that are out there bringing the money in. So I don't like the connotation that we are a cost center. I've said that before.
Yeah.
We don't have to be a cost center. And so we have to change that thought process.
That perception. Could not agree more. Love that response. And last one, a little bit of fun for you, Cari. If payroll was a movie, a song, or a book, you can choose whichever you prefer. What would it be and why?
That's a tough one. You needed to warn me about that one. I don't know. I don't know. I think about all of my favorite movies. Where would I put it in? I don't know. I really don't know. Right now in my head, I'm stuck on here in the States on Hallmark. Christmas movies, So I'm like thinking, here comes Santa
That's okay.
Claus. I'm Santa Claus.
We'll go with that. We'll run with that. Well, listen, this has been an episode full of stories. I think it's fair to say you're a wonderful storyteller. You bring them back to life so eloquently, so vividly for people to really imagine the situations and the examples that you've given. So I'm very thankful for sharing your wisdom, sharing your insights, sharing your wonderful stories with our listeners and with myself today. So thank you ever so much, Cari, for joining me today on the Payroll Podcast. I will, of course, put a link to your LinkedIn profile in the show notes. So for those that do want to connect with Cari, perhaps you want to find out more or just want to build the community that we have here and help find your voice, then I'll put that in the show notes as well. And of course, if you are looking for any payroll talent in the US or anywhere beyond, please do get in touch with my team. I'll put a link in the show notes as well. It's jgarecruitmentinc.com for the US and jjrecruitment.com for the UK and Europe. So please do get in touch with myself and my team if you're struggling for talent. But most importantly, please do remember to share this episode with all of your payroll colleagues and friends. We've had so many wonderful insights from Cari today. I want to make sure the whole global payroll community has an opportunity to listen. So if you can do one thing for me today and you're listening to this, one favor, just share it with one of your payroll colleagues or friends, review it, subscribe, and we're going to really make payroll a better place. But more importantly, a place where everyone starts to understand what it is that we do, which is a wonderful thing. And then we can start to make change happen. So Cari Breitinger, thank you ever so much for joining me on the Payroll Podcast. It's been my pleasure.
Thank you for having me. It's been fun.
This episode is sponsored by Deel. That's Deel. Deel is your forever people platform built to simplify your entire global payroll process. Deel's fully managed global payroll makes it possible to pay your entire team in over 100 countries and in over 200 currencies, all in one place. So whether you're an enterprise business, a small company, or something in between, Deel is built to meet your unique business needs. So if you're ready to transform your global payroll system, click the link in the show notes to book a demo with Deel today. That's Deel.